So it is now my pleasure to introduce our next two speakers, Vitality Specialist with the Northern Piedmont District of the Western North Carolina Conference of the United Methodist Church, Reverend Maria King, and Pastor of Faith Community Church and Director of the Beloved Organizing Training and Healing Initiative with the Beloved Community Center in Greensboro, Reverend Wesley Morris. The ripple effect of this work and leadership in the greater Greensboro area, Guilford, Rockingham, and Randolph counties has attracted attention, visits, and partnerships from the Charlotte, Triangle, and Rocky Mount Wilson area to racial healing and justice networks that span the state and beyond. Their full bios can be found on IEI's website. Please help me welcome Reverends King and Morris to the stage.
As you notice, they moved the preachers after lunch. I thought we would bless your food, but thank you for having us. Real, authentic connection and real, authentic change will only last with real, authentic relationships. Right? My role and my work spans all of Rockingham County, all of Guilford County, and pretty much half of Randolph County. And my work is to get to know the stories and the beautiful connections and relationships in those communities and hear the stories of beautiful leaders as they're trying to love their community and love the connections and relationships they have. And when I was doing this work, there was such a common theme across every neighborhood. It didn't matter the zip code or the color lines, was that every community that I was engaged in always said to us, we are divided within ourselves. And we finally got to that stage after some long, authentic relationships, right? So the work of the Beloved Community Center, which you'll see with this next slide, they work with cultures of fear. And so it was such a pleasure for me to engage all these leaders from all these three counties who were struggling with how divided they were within themselves and to bring them here. And it started just a beautiful relationship and a partnership. And I told our leaders, I said, we need to learn from the Beloved Community Center. And we need to partner with the Beloved Community Center. And we're trying to cultivate this idea of relationships are the priority. People are the priority. And try to go beyond a conversation and go beyond a new kind of relationship. I want to introduce you to Joyce. She is the co-director of the Beloved Community Center and one of my mentors. She's also one of the first black women who graduated from Duke University. She graduated in 1968, mind you. So I want to introduce you to a friend of mine who we've been working together, and as we cultivate that real connection, real change comes from a real relationship.
Good after lunch, everybody. In preacher language, I won't be before you too long. I'm very honored really to be here, and I just want to share some of the purposeful motivation behind this process of discipleship. Discipleship is something that means a little bit more than following. It's more than fellowship. It's a bit of doingship. You see how I do some things with language. But I really want to just press in on a couple of points and then open it up for some questions. The first is this. I do come from the beloved Community Center of Greensboro, and I'm the pastor of Faith Community Church there. So I want to give thanks for our directors, Reverend Nelson Johnson and Miss Joyce Johnson, and all the work that they've done, particularly around truth and reconciliation for the state of North Carolina, this country, and the world. But we operate, absolutely. And while I'm saying thanks, let me give thanks to the service staff that I see working very hard and the housekeeping here as well. I want to say that Dr. Vincent Harding, a good friend of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and the beloved Community Center, has this creed, and I heard him say it at Highlander in Tennessee, a Center for Training Organizers. He said that we must begin to live our lives as if we are citizens of a country that does not yet exist, a just country, a compassionate country, where children are cared for and elders are cared for. That is some of the work that we are called to do. Also, I'm remembering that there was a King Day breakfast not long ago in Greensboro, and folks gathered in rooms just like this, and that the tables were really diverse. They were multiracial, multi-ethnic. But I began to think about Dr. King's word that the diversity at our tables, if they are not relevant to the poor and their conditions, the significance begins to minimalize itself. What good is it for this to be an integrated society and sitting at lunch counters if we cannot afford to drink the same cup of coffee? There's a danger in the work that we're doing, because when you ask 25 pastors from the United Methodist Church, from rural, urban, and suburban communities to sit in a circle like many of your tables are arranged, and come just below the level of consciousness that we generally use in our day-to-day navigation systems, and you ask a question, such as Ruby Sales asked, where does it hurt? Where does it hurt? And you begin that question in a society that's just 60 years removed from segregation, inflamed by racist tensions over the last year that our country hasn't seen in a little while on a public platform. So when you talk about that and you are talking about discipleship with pastors who are leading congregations to the best of their ability, you then have to ask deeper questions. Questions about sacrifice. Questions about the culturally compromised identity that some of us wear. And where do we go from that place? And so I don't want you to think that we just hang out with those questions alone. We do put our feet to the ground and we do sing a little bit. We do gather in small groups and talk about the scriptures. But what the pastors really wanted me to share with you today is that this has been a transformative experience. It's a new level of transparency. It happens that way because they knew coming in that there was a commitment beyond one workshop. There was a commitment beyond one circle conversation, and that you would be able to build relationships with folks that are close to you. Let me just share one 30-second story with you. Going by the clock, I got you. As being a part of this group, I'm also on the journey. I'm one of the facilitators, but it was quite an opportunity when one of the pastors asked me to join his church and do a Bible study session with his youth department. We all know that the youth tell the truth. So, and for those that aren't pastors, when you are invited to come to another pastor's church, it's almost like sitting at a table and pulling out your phone and unlocking it and giving it to the person beside you and saying, have at it. And so when I went to the church, I went with the youth of this church. And I was so impressed because they were grounded and rooted in a tradition. Because one of the young people played soccer, and I said, oh, you're great. I was encouraging. I said, you're going to be in the World Cup one day. I'd love to see you on the screen. He told me, I just have this dream. My biggest hope isn't the World Cup. My biggest hope is to love God and to love people. That's profound. It's profound not because it just came from a young person, but I was able to hear that in a church that I otherwise would never have been in. The relationships take time, but I promise you that they're worth it. And like Mr. Wesley said earlier, places are not poor. Places are not violent. Places don't endure these things. People do. So when you take the time to look inside the eyes of the person that is near you, begin to build a relationship on the fundamental questions. And that our scriptures urge us and inspire us to do justice, love mercy, and to walk humbly with our God. Thank you.